Hey everybody, let's talk about Function Health, which is advertising everywhere. I have signed up for Function Health a year ago now and want to share my experience, where I think it's a good product, where it might be lacking, talk about the price, and also walk you through my Function Health results so you can see what you're going to get if you sign up. Hey everybody, my name is Jake Kaiser, a man in desperate need of a haircut. And I have been optimizing my health for many years. I have been diligently tracking my blood results for probably 8 to 10 years now, and I have used every company out there. I've been amazed that it's getting easier and easier and cheaper to do this. And I've taken such an interest in this, I even have a blog on health optimization, longevity, biohacking, things along that nature. And also even have a company that takes in people's biomarker data from places like Function, Quest, and any other lab and gives them kind of an action-oriented blueprint for their own personal health based on cutting-edge longevity research. This is all to say I have spent a lot of time in this space. I have used or seen test results from every company under the sun, so I feel like I have a good perspective to share on Function. All right, so when I dive into my Function dashboard, we see that one of the first things that pops up big is your biological age score. This is just a pheno age score, which is a very simple clock that's based on, I think it's like 7 different biomarkers that are pretty standard and tries to give you an idea of your biological age. To be honest, this is not a very sophisticated algorithm, so I wouldn't over-index on it, but looking younger than you are in reality is definitely a good sign. The other thing you'll see is the results, which we'll dive into in a second. You have some clinician notes, which you can read through mine here. They're very, very basic. They feel like an LLM with no personality wrote them. And to be honest, I found them pretty disappointing. I think that Function, I expected more from this section. However, it definitely gives you a little bit of an overview of your results and kind of gives you an idea of things you might want to double click on. But I would say if you don't know a lot about biomarkers and blood test results and you want Function to be your sole source of truth, it's going to be tricky. That's why I created a product called Kestrel Report, actually, was to fill that gap. In the end, if you're willing to dive into these things where you might be out of range, use an LLM to help you out and do some of your own digging, maybe look at some meta-analyses, some things like that, I do think it gives you a good starting point to do that more detailed analysis. But as we dive into the biomarkers here, you can see that it shows what is in range and what it is flagged out of range, so it's easy to see those. And also if you're using Function for a long time and have anything that you're explicitly improving, I guess those would pop up here. Before we dive through the biomarkers, it also kind of does this little action plan that's like, you should eat things that are higher in omega-3s. For me, again, things like pasture-raised eggs and some different antioxidants. I think these are pretty generic. It's basically just recommending every healthy food. Again, not super interesting. And it's saying don't eat a bunch of oils that are high in omega-6 fats. I don't think you need Function to tell you that, to be honest. And it also does this kind of supplement section, which is not a bad supplement list. But again, it's giving you a lot of things and not super targeted for what I personally need. As someone who kind of helps people understand their biomarkers, and is someone that is very well versed in the world of supplements and the research. These are overall a little bit generic. There's some good things here. Definitely my omega-3 fatty acids I need a little bit more of. Fiber is going to help with my lipid profile. I don't disagree with any of these here, and I'm taking actually quite a few of these, but I do think it could be a little bit more targeted and also explain a little bit more of what it's trying to do. It looks like they've added actually this little pop-up, which is new. It kind of ties it to a biomarker, but again, I would just like a little bit more explanation here for the price you're paying and what I think Function promises. Let's quickly look through all of the results that Function gives you. Overall, I don't want to talk to this too much because you can do your own research, but Function is giving you a wide swath of tests. It's covering all the basic tests you would ever do and then many, many more. The things that I like that it adds like automatically is some of the omega-3 index stuff. It does add like lead and mercury levels, and like an ANA antibody screen, which is really good if you might want to double click into any autoimmune issues. Overall, I'm very impressed with what it's giving you, but would say it might actually give you a little bit too much information. And this isn't a test that I really need to do annually. I think function is a very good test to do every like 5 years, and then annually do more targeted tests on the things that you know you need to improve or something that you might be worried about. For example, if my mercury is great, but I start eating a ton of seafood, that's something I'm gonna wanna keep tabs on. But I don't think you're missing anything major with the function biomarkers that they're giving you. As we look through here, you can see it does a great job of all your cardiovascular risk things and your lipid profile. You'll see almost all of my out of range things are all of these different particle sizes, which if you browse the Function Health Reddit or anywhere else, you'll say almost everybody is out of range here. So don't freak out over those. Focus on your ApoB, your Lp(a), and the main atherogenic particles. And I would say that I have not seen any research that convinces me this is super critical. Not saying it's useless, but definitely more of a tertiary factor. In terms of your immune regulation, this is all of your kind of white blood cell count and a bunch of other stuff. It's also looking at your overall like inflammation markers in here. All good information, all great to see. Luckily, I'm in good ranges here. The next section here is your kidney health section. It has most of your basic kidney health biomarkers. The one thing that I like to note to people is their GFR is based on creatinine. And if you do take a lot of creatine, which is different, it actually can make your creatinine levels look higher. So I like to use cystatin C actually as a biomarker here and do my GFR calculated based on that. As someone who takes a lot of creatine, as I've found that this makes my kidney health look a little bit worse than it actually is. And cystatin C is actually a little bit more precise in terms of looking at overall kidney health and can pick up issues with kidney health a little bit earlier on. So that's one thing not on function that you might want to think about adding. Going over to your liver health, you got all of your standard liver biomarkers, including like GGT, which isn't included everywhere. You can see again for me, looking pretty good for my liver, which is always awesome to see. Going into your male health section, this is going to be basically all your hormones. I assume if you're female here, you'll see the female health section, and they do a pretty good job of getting the basic hormones tested. You got your DHEA, you got your main androgens, you got your luteinizing hormone, FSH, all the things you would really need to go into an endocrinologist and start looking if you have any issues. This is actually one of my things that's slightly out of range. I've always had slightly high SHBG. Right now I'm actually experimenting with bringing that down with a supplement, but this is something that I'm working on and has been an issue of mine for a long time. That will reduce my free testosterone, which I have seen. Also, when I did my last test, I was traveling and really sick, and my total T was the worst it's ever been. Also, another thing I'm working on for myself, even though it's flagged within range. That is a good example of function. Will show you if you are in the standard reference ranges, but I do think does a really poor job of showing where you could optimize and get better health outcomes. For example, it might show that my ApoB is green here, and even when my ApoB was 90 or 89, it's going to show up as green. However, if I want to reduce my risk of heart disease and strokes for the rest of my life, lower is better here. The data is unequivocal on that. So this is where function health can be a little misleading again, where you can have a lot of things that appear green that aren't in this below range or above range section. However, you might have a lot of legwork or a lot of headroom where you can improve your health, your expected lifespan, and also health span. So that's another thing where this is just giving you, again, that kind of standard reference range versus really trying to take one on the journey of optimizing their health and being as healthy as possible. So if you do function, I think you might still account for needing to buy a separate service or spending some time on that optimization. But as we go back down to where we were, I will also note like the graphs, if you're doing a lot of testing through function, showing where they go over time is awesome to see. It's pretty easy to do this within a spreadsheet as well, but if you are a function health user for many years, I could see that having all those graphs in one pretty UI is really nice. Now we're getting to the metabolic health section. This is giving you your insulin, glucose, and HbA1c. I really do wish they give you the HOMA-IR, which is a calculation based on insulin and glucose that's clinically extremely significant here. and actually one of my favorite markers to track. I find it a lot more useful than HbA1c, but regardless, that's just what I like to use for people I'm helping. But you got your basic metabolic health markers here, and it is great that they include insulin, as there's so many American doctors who only do fasting glucose and HbA1c. And I've seen, working with a lot of people, that insulin is where you start to see metabolic dysfunction earlier on, and the first hints of insulin resistance long before this pops up in your glucose or HbA1c. So definitely keep close attention to your insulin. And if you want to look up your HOMA-IR, it is a very simple calculation. You can Google it, but it takes 10 seconds to do. Next, we're going to our nutrient section, and they do a good job here. You got all of your calcium, iron, your main minerals. You have a full iron panel, which is great, with your ferritin, iron binding capacity. This is another really critical one they include that I think should be much more prevalent. I've seen so many people that have issues with iron. I've seen men that could benefit so much by donating blood and actually getting rid of excess iron. And I've seen so many females that are borderline or full-on anemic. So this is a good one that I think our modern American health system, which is the one I'm familiar with, does a really bad job of proactively looking for. You also got your homocysteine here, great marker of inflammation, something you should really be paying attention to that has a lot of impact, again, on potential ACSVD and heart disease, stroke risk, all of these. The thing I mentioned earlier that I love in here is you got your full omega panel, I think the omega check. The thing that I like to pay attention to the most here is omega-3 and 6 ratio, as well as your omega-3 total. Again, I'm within range here, but there is quite a bit of research showing that having an 8% or above omega-3 index here via omega check leads to better health outcomes and less all-cause mortality. So this is another one where it looks green here, but if I didn't know that biomarker goal of 8.5%, I might not know that I need to increase my omega-3 consumption through supplementation or diet, or also try to decrease omega-6s on the other side to help out there. The other thing you have is you got your vitamin D, which is another amazing one. I like to tell to everyone to get tested annually, because I'd say of the people that I've looked at their blood test results of, a majority of people in America are near non-ideal ranges. I have tested this since then. I'm up in the 50s now. I did that test through somebody else. So this is something that I have worked on. And personally, I need to supplement a lot of vitamin D. There is an aspect of metabolism here. As someone who spends a lot of time outside, I literally am outside all the time. I'm a big runner, mountain biker, skier. I need some supplemental vitamin D, to be honest. I just can't get to optimal levels without it. Also, we get our kind of cortisol here, a few pancreas biomarkers. Got your basic thyroid stuff, your free T3, T4. Shows that your thyroid's working well, which is a big issue. So something that's good that it's included here. Again, this is one where I don't think I need this annually. I might test TSH annually, but I don't need my free T3 and T4 every year. A lot of these, if you have a good baseline and you're not changing a ton of things and keeping and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, probably aren't going to change. And last thing, you have your albumin and all of the urine analysis stuff, which looks good for me. I didn't look at a ton of this, but a good kind of early indicator of anything might be totally off. And that brings us to the bottom here. So that is a full view of my Function Health dashboard. I hope it gives you a good understanding of what this looks like, and wasn't too in depth, but kind of shows you what it might look like to get your results and scroll through them. And I think that leads us with, is function worth it? What is my overall experience and assessment? And I think that really depends on what you are after. Overall function gives you a ton of biomarkers, which is incredible, but I do think it might be excessive to do annually, to be honest, and you might be able to save some money by doing something like a function every 5 years, and then just really be focusing on those biomarkers that you're trying to improve or are really critical for overall checking of your biomarkers annually, like your main liver and kidney function, all of your blood cell counts, your main lipid profiles, your main metabolic health functions. So I would say overall, if you are price insensitive, having everything within Function is super easy. They seem to do a good job. However, you can probably save some money and be a little bit more targeted by doing a really big round of blood analysis, like less frequently, and then focus on those kind of sustaining things and things you're improving in between. However, I think that puts a lot more onerous on you to track everything in a spreadsheet or elsewhere. So I could see a lot of value on just sticking with one platform and sticking with them for the future. I also will say $500 a year is a steep price, but it is a good deal for the amount of data you're getting. However, there is a lot of new companies in this space, and overall the price of blood analysis or blood or biomarker testing is coming down a lot. So I think Function has a lot of competition in this space. Places like Good Labs that actually allow you to get free biomarkers when you donate blood and actually have reduced prices for the biomarker test you're doing, as well as a number of other companies that are popping up, I think is gonna give Function a run for its money. I would say that Function does have these sales pretty often where you can get $100, $150 off. So I think for that $350 price range, it's awesome. And then I would probably personally cancel after that first year, go to a Good Labs or another one of these companies and do my follow-up testing through there, and then kind of own my own health journey through tracking that on spreadsheets or using a service like the Kestrel Report or others that are doing a more comprehensive deep dive into your biomarkers to help you with your personal health journey and create a little bit more actionable plan. And I think the last place where Function is not gonna wow you, and you should have low expectations, is the clinician notes and any kind of feedback on what you need to do to improve your biomarkers. Sure, they have a few supplements, but if you really wanna dig into that and find the things that are gonna be the most effective for your situation, that's again where you doing your own research or finding someone very knowledgeable to help you is gonna be helpful. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of primary care doctors out there with the time and honestly the knowledge to dive into this. So if that's something that you're interested in, let me know in the comments, because that's something obviously I'm super passionate about and very knowledgeable on, and would be happy to share the things that I've learned in doing this for myself and other people. And with that, I think Function is an awesome service. I'm glad that they're normalizing getting blood test preventative medicine done, and I am stoked on that. I hope more people are doing this. It's gonna lead to better health outcomes for all of us, a healthier society. Props to Function, but my assessment is it's pretty pricey. You're paying for a lot of their advertising, and if you want a super polished product, might be worth it, especially if you get a deal. But if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do a little bit more work, you might want to look more into those alternatives. But I really hope that was helpful. If you are interested in Function, I'm going to put an affiliate link down below that I think saves you money and gives me a little bit of money as well, which I will not say no to. And if you have any questions about any biomarkers, supplements, or anything else, please feel free to use the comment section to ask, and I will catch you on that next video. Thank you so much for watching.